Hi, I'm Andy Acker, Director of Education for Schluter-Systems in North America.
And I'm Bryant Bouchard, Regional Manager of the Northeast.
So we have a couple things we're going to cover here in this particular demonstration. One is if you don't have any access to the plumbing from underneath, the only access is through the hole here in the top.
Yeah, from the top.
Now the other thing we're also going to cover is what we're looking at here is this recess if this was going to be a secondary drain.
Right, and the reason we have a grinder here on the set today, Andy, is because when you look at the bottom side of the KERDI-DRAIN flange, there's a step down, and that measures about 1/4 of an inch. And if we want this to either bottom out, or in our case today, we're going to leave it proud of the concrete floor by 1/8 of an inch, because we're going to be using the detra as an uncoupling membrane. But getting back to this, we got to lose about 1/4 of an inch, which you can see we've already done, and we were using the grinder to achieve that earlier.
Okay, so the grinder's a good way to do that, but make certain that if this is a slab, it could be a post-tension or a pre-stressed concrete, one of those structural type of slabs. You don't want to interfere with the cable that can be under a lot of tension in these slabs, so you don't want to mess with the slab too much.
Yeah, right.
But we're only going in about 1/4 of an inch here, so it shouldn't really intrude on that. So we got a P-trap down in place there, I see.
So the next step, Andy, is we are going to set this dry on top of the deck, and then we're going to measure from the P-trap to this section of the KERDI-DRAIN flange, this stop. And that's going to give us a measurement of which the pipe needs to be cut.
And of course that riser pipe is going to be different measurements depending on how high the flange is up off your slab. And here, since this is a secondary drainage, it's going to go within 1/8 of an inch of the slab. But we also have some other ways to do this. It might be a slab that's in place, the plumbing's in place, and we're going to do a shower pan in here, which is going to need a slope. So we have some other props here we just want to share with you and show you how you would use these if that is the case for this particular drain.
So if we were going to do a mortar bed, Andy, to pitch and slope to the KERDI-DRAIN, we would leave these for the plumber. These are spacers, giving us the correct height to leave the flange above the deck. So these 4 pieces would be slid on each side of the flange. The plumber would do all his work, cleaner, primer, glue, and then when the tile contractor comes, he simply slides these out and he'll pack his mortar here and continue up for his slope.
So that's going to give the drain proper support. It's going to get the drain pitch right as far as it being level here in place. So that would do it. How about if
it will also allow the plumber to do his work.
That's right. So the plumber can get that in, level that up, get it where it's supposed to be. But also, maybe they're not going to do mortar bed. Perhaps they're going to use one of our
this is one of our trays. In this case, the plumber would hang on to these inserts, and he would put those dry.
Not the whole tray, just this
that
center
insert
section that detaches.
Right. Same idea. He can do all of his work, cleaner, primer, glue, get the flange set. That's all finished. And again, the tile guy will come back, and he's going to slide those back out. He's going to make sure there's thin set under, so there's full support, and thin set on top, so that there's no give in the flange.
And then slide these pieces underneath.
Back in.
Yeah, and then the rest of the tray gets cut to fit and slides straight down on top in thin set. Okay, but again, back to this particular application. This is a secondary drainage. Say it's outside of a shower area or in a drying room where they're going to have an extra drain, and we're going to want this flush to the detra. So we've got the impression here, ground with the grinder. That's all in place, and we're ready to figure out how to hook this whole thing up.
And so we've cut our PVC pipe already, and we're going to check and make sure we have the right height.
So how did you go about getting that height to begin with that pipe?
So we measured down. We put this in dry.
Okay. Again, it's about 1/8 of an inch off the deck here because of the detra thickness.
And we measure down to the trap and to the stop of our flange, and that measures 6 inches.
Okay.
So then we've cut the pipe already.
Okay.
And now we're going to dry fit it just to make sure everything's cut properly. And there, we know we get the right height. So now we can pull it back up, and we're going to use the cleaner, primer, and glue. We're also going to use thin set because we have to support the flange. So we're going to do that all in one application.
Okay, so both seating the drain in the thin set and hooking up the plumbing, getting it all glued up. It's got to be done all in one sequence.
All together.
Okay. So there is a hub inside of our tailpiece on our drain that riser pipe's going to butt to, so it has a stop. Okay, good. I'll hold on to that.
Okay, now I'm going to add thin set here, and then I'll reach in, do the primer and cleaner to this part, and then glue to both
And then
areas.
we'll be ready to seat it right in place.
I want to make sure we've got plenty of thin set here in this area where we use the grinder. Again, this is to fully support our flange.
Yeah, as it goes through all the contours on here, we want that to be fully supported, clear right up to where it fits into the hole in the subfloor on all the way out.
Make sure we've got enough all the way.
I'll hold this for you.
Grab it, Andy. Okay. And then finally the glue.
Right. Work it down in, a little bit of twisting action back and forth to make certain it seats well. Okay, looks like we have it seated in, the glue joint's done. You can see that the thin set's working through the trapezoid punch-outs around there, so that's good. That's going to give it a little bit of a mechanical fastening in there also. It's fully seated. So now I guess the next step would be to put the detra up all the way around it. Now we've pre-cut the detra with the same size hole in it there. That's the dimension of the flange, so that's ready to go. Detra is an uncoupling membrane that's also going to be waterproofing. That's one of its other functions. So we're going to get both uncoupling for the tile veneer and waterproofing here on this floor. There's a fleece on the backside that's going to enable the thin set to work its way or wick up into that fleece, and that's what's going to give us a mechanical fastening of the detra to the floor via the thin set. So we switched trowels now to a little bit of a smaller trowel. This is actually a trowel that we offer called the detra trowel, but you could use an equivalent notch trowel to the detra trowel also. So something a little less than quarter by quarter notch will work here. You don't want to use too much thin set. You can see another proper technique is to make certain you burn the thin set into the substrate so it's got a good grab, and you spread the thin set out with all with the flat side of the trowel. And then the last thing you do is come in and gauge how much thin set you're going to leave on the floor with the notch side. So now we've got the proper notch. All right, Brian. Oops.
Now you can see we cut the opening for the KERDI-DRAIN flange, so that's the portion of the detra that we removed. But that's not waterproof yet.
No, we'll have to tie that together. And also, the way to embed the detra into that bond coat. use a wood float. You can use a roller, but nothing over 75 pounds. And just firmly embed that fleece.
Okay.
And now, to tie it together with waterproofing, our KERDI product does come in different configurations. You see we have a collar here. This hole is the size that we need to leave free this last recess where the drain assembly goes in. And this is going to come out onto the detra, which of course is waterproof already, so you're ready to go. So fill the cavities of the detra. Notice the thin set's a little looser than you typically use to set tile. We want it to be in a fairly fluid consistency, but still able to hold a notch. That's going to be perfect for embedding all of our membranes, KERDI, KERDI-DS, detra products. That's what we're going to want. And then, of course, now we switch back to the KERDI trowel. This is about an 8x8 square notch, 3/16 V notch, so not a whole lot, but you don't need a lot of material to get the membrane embedded. So that's going to gauge how much thin set we're going to leave for that process to actually embed the KERDI. There's no front or back side to the collar or to any of the KERDI products, so that'll be
all right.
There we go. So you saw a nice wide bonding flange on the drain. So that's what's going to tie it to the flange itself, is that wide area around there. So we get a watertight seal there, and then we've got plenty of material here that works its way up onto the detra. And you can see Brian's using a technique to firmly embed the KERDI into the bond coat, knocking down all of those ribs from the notch trowel and removing any excess material, which isn't a whole lot, and then also any air bubbles or blisters that could be underneath it. And there's a crucial bond right down onto the flange. And it would be good to remove any excess thin set because you might not be setting tile right now. That might come a little ways down the road. So, and then also removing any excess thin set from around that recess, so you have that there accessible when you go to put the drain grate assembly in, which doesn't go in until you're actually setting the tile. So, well, there you go.
Okay.
We've got that in place. So we covered a lot here, Brian. We did the no access plumbing, got it all glued up through the top hole, no other access, so you have to do it that way. We showed the recess that was put into the concrete slab, in this case, is what we were trying to mimic here.
Using the grinder.
Using the grinder, so and then we seated the drain in, got the drain in flush with the top of the detra.
Right. And lastly, to create a waterproof, watertight connection, we use this collar of KERDI to connect from the flange to the detra.
Okay.
We're ready for tile once this is dry.
So we did this demo for you, but they can also access this information and instructions otherwise.
Yeah, actually, always refer to our Schluter-Systems shower handbook and the detra installation handbook for all these instructions and more.
Okay, well, thanks very much for watching.
Thanks.